Hey guys, this is Captain for the Book Reports, finally uploading a new video after 10 months and thereby officially confirming that I am alive. I've seen quite a few comments notifying me that I should get up and start making some videos pretty soon, so I've decided it's time. The book we're going to look at today is Hamlet by William Shakespeare. So this is William Shakespeare. He wrote 37 plays in his lifetime and they were divided into three categories: comedies, tragedies, and histories. Tragedies usually involved a lot of death and disastrous consequences culminating from simple misunderstandings. Most scholars and avid readers pick four of these tragedies, among many others. These four are Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. The one I'm going to talk about today is this one. The story begins in the Danish city of Elsinore, more specifically on the walls of Elsinore at midnight. The two guards patrolling the walls are called Bernardo and Marcellus, and they're joined by a third man, a scholar named Horatio. The reason a scholar is out here is because the two guards have allegedly seen a ghost the night before, and Horatio doesn't believe it. So Bernardo begins to tell the tale to Horatio about the ghost again, and he's like, "Pshaw, no way there's a ghost out here." And then the ghost enters the scene, and he's like, "OMG, it's a ghost." Horatio tries to talk to the ghost, but he gets kind of offended and leaves. The next day, Claudius, the brother of the former king Hamlet the First and the next king of Elsinore, has a wedding. Guess who he's marrying? Hamlet's wife, Gertrude. That's right, he's marrying his sister-in-law. When they're done, they immediately get down to business. Claudius sends a messenger to old King Fortinbras of Norway, whose son, also named Fortinbras, has constantly been pestering Denmark about territory gains. Then he gives Laertes, son of the advisor Polonius, a thumbs up to go back to his homeland Franks after he has extorted permission from his father. And then the newlywed couple try to do something about Hamlet, the prince who has been gloomy ever since his father died. Hamlet wants to go back to Wittenberg, his school, but Claudius and Gertrude manages to convince him not to go, and also to treat Claudius as if he were his father. Hamlet seems to agree to all this, but then he has a soliloquy about misery, insulting his mother for being disloyal to his father and committing incest with her brother-in-law. Then Horatio and Marcellus come to visit Hamlet, and Horatio's like, "Yo, what's up, your majesty? Guess what? We just saw your dead dad's ghost on the walls last night." So Hamlet decides to go with the two men to the walls that night to see whether or not the ghost will speak to him. Meanwhile, Polonius and his daughter Ophelia say goodbye to Laertes, the beloved son and older brother. Laertes warns her not to fall in love with Hamlet, who has been making advances towards her. That night, the ghost appears before the three men and orders Hamlet to follow him alone. When they are alone, the ghost reveals that he is indeed King Hamlet, and that he wants his son to avenge his horrible murder. It turns out that Claudius, his own brother, had poisoned him through the ears while he was sleeping in an orchard, killing him and stealing both the crown and his wife. So Hamlet tells Horatio and Marcellus what happened, and then he's like, "Swear by my sword not to tell anyone about this," and they do. Then Hamlet decides to act insane from then on to try and find out whether his uncle is really a murderer or if the ghost was just lying to him. In the next scene, Ophelia comes to her father Polonius and tells him that Prince Hamlet had come to her bedroom, looked over her, then acting like one in madness, left the room. So Polonius decides that Hamlet must be mad for her daughter's love, and thus his recent crazy behavior. Meanwhile, Claudius summons two of Hamlet's childhood friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, to try and find out the cause of his illness. Then Polonius enters and tells Claudius and Gertrude what he thinks is causing Hamlet's madness. He shows them letters that Hamlet has sent to Ophelia, their cheesy love letters. When Hamlet walks in, Polonius, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern all attempt to talk to him and find out the cause of his madness, but Hamlet simply roasts him with his sharp wits. At the end of the roasting session, traveling actors who Hamlet loves arrives. They perform a scene from Virgil's Aeneid just to show how good they are. Then Hamlet pulls the chief actor aside and asks him to perform the murder of Gonzago during the feast that night. The murder of Gonzago is about a man murdering a nobleman for his wife and money. Through it, he plans to discover whether Claudius really is a murderer. He also adds a dozen lines at the beginning. Polonius still thinks Hamlet's insanity is a result of Ophelia rejecting him, so he stages a meeting between the two and hides behind a curtain along with Claudius to listen. However, Hamlet is very cold and harsh to Ophelia, leaving her in tears and walking away. Polonius admits that love may not be the cause of Hamlet's madness, but suggests that Gertrude and Hamlet have a talk while he hides behind a curtain and listens in. That night, the play takes place, with the lines Hamlet added at the beginning making the royal couple more and more uncomfortable, as it indirectly criticizes Gertrude's decision to be so disloyal and forgetful about her husband, and to remarry mere month after he died. When the play comes to the scene where the villain kills the nobleman by dripping poison into his ear, Claudius suddenly gets up and, shouting for lights, rushes out of the room with most of the court but Hamlet and Horatio following him. Realizing that the ghost was telling the truth, Hamlet solemnly pledges to avenge King Hamlet the First. Polonius comes to inform Hamlet that Gertrude is waiting for him in her room and that she is very upset. On the way, Hamlet sees Claudius praying, trying to get over his guilt, but decides not to kill him because his soul would go to heaven if he were killed praying. Polonius hides behind the curtain while Hamlet and Gertrude argue. Their conversation gets heated and Gertrude, thinking Hamlet will murder her in his madness, calls for help. Alarmed, Polonius also begins shouting. Thinking it is his father who hid behind the curtains, Hamlet stabs and kills Polonius. Despite the accident, Hamlet continues berating his mother until she is crying tears of remorse. Then the ghost of King Hamlet enters after Gertrude begins crying and tells Hamlet to have a bit of mercy on her, for she's a weak woman despite her evil acts. Seeing Hamlet conversing with, apparently, thin air, Gertrude worries that his son has truly gone mad. After the ghost vanishes, Hamlet reveals that he is not in fact insane. He then tells her, more gently, to cut her ties with Claudius and to keep the secret about his insanity. Gertrude, tearful but relieved, agrees. Hamlet drags away Polonius' dead body to hide it. When Claudius enters and hears Gertrude's story about Polonius' murder, he is deeply distressed, thinking he too will soon be killed if he allows Hamlet to linger in Denmark for much longer. He decides to ship him off to England that night. After retrieving both Hamlet and the body, Claudius orders Hamlet sent off to England with a secret letter telling the English king to kill Hamlet as soon as he reaches the court, no questions asked. The news of Polonius' murder gets out and it has consequences. Ophelia goes mad, singing strange songs and talking about flowers. Meanwhile, Laertes gathers up a rebel army to march against Elsinore and plans to kill Claudius, thinking he has murdered his father. Claudius informs him that this is not the case, and shows him his crazed sister, which further angers Laertes, who determines to punish whoever has killed his father and caused his sister to go mad. Meanwhile, Horatio gets a letter from Hamlet telling him about his voyage at sea. Their ship was intercepted by pirates and Hamlet was captured, while Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were not. The duo are now headed for England, read the letter, while Hamlet, is coming back home. Laertes, now convinced of Claudius' innocence in Polonius' murder, inquires why he didn't immediately order the murderer executed. Claudius reveals that Polonius' murderer is, in fact, Hamlet. A few moments later, a letter arrives from Hamlet. Learning that Hamlet has come back to Denmark, Laertes and Claudius makes a plan to kill him. Laertes will challenge Hamlet to a fencing competition in which he will use a poisoned sword, while Hamlet uses a normal fencing sword. A poisoned wine will also be present in case Laertes fails to wound Hamlet. News arrives that Ophelia has thrown herself into a lake and drowned. The scene changes to Hamlet's arrival in Denmark. He is joined by Horatio and meets two gravediggers who have no idea who he is. Hamlet talks with one of the gravediggers and ponders about death and how frail human life is. The famous line, "Alas, poor Yorick," comes from this scene. Soon, Laertes, Gertrude, and Claudius arrive with a priest carrying the body of the dead Ophelia. Hamlet and Horatio hide and listen. Not knowing that Ophelia is dead, Hamlet is very shocked to learn that the inhabitant of the coffin is none other than his lover. Hamlet runs forward, revealing his true identity. Laertes, maddened by his appearance at the funeral, attacks him, and though the crowd separates them, they end in bad terms. The day after, Hamlet tells Horatio the whole story of his escape, about Claudius' letter, and how he replaced it so that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern would be killed in his stead. While they are talking, Osric, an annoying courtier, enters. He tells Hamlet that Laertes has challenged him to a fencing match, something that Hamlet has always wanted to try. Laertes, in order to touch on Hamlet's pride, has arranged this so that if Hamlet gets just 3 scores out of the total 12, he will win. Hamlet, Laertes, Osric, Horatio, Gertrude, and Claudius, as well as others, all enter the room in which the competition is to take place. Hamlet apologizes for his actions in the graveyard, but Laertes is still angry. The first bout ends in Hamlet's victory, and although Claudius offers Hamlet the poisoned wine, he declines it, saying he will go another round before he gets a drink. Hamlet wins the second bout as well, but he's out of shape and sweaty. Gertrude, worried about her son, drinks a toast from the poisoned wine, although Claudius warns her not to. The third bout is a draw, but Laertes, running out of patience, wounds Hamlet with his poisoned sword unfairly. There's a scuffle, and Hamlet ends up with the poisoned sword, and stabbing Laertes with it, and the poison spreads through their body. At that moment, the queen drops and dies from the poison in the wine. Laertes admits that it is Claudius and himself has murdered the queen, and Hamlet, blind with rage, stabs Claudius and then forces him to drink poisoned wine, killing him. After that, Laertes offers to trade forgiveness, that of Ophelia's death for that of Hamlet's own. Laertes soon dies from the poison as well. And finally, after telling Horatio to tell the story of what happened in Elsinore to the whole world, Prince Hamlet succumbs to the poison and dies. Wow, that is a long video. Anyway, that's it for today, a summary of William Shakespeare's epic tragedy, Hamlet. Thanks for watching, see you next video.